The stars were no longer bright. They did not shine with hope anymore. Across the galaxy, fear had taken their place. Planets that once glowed with life were now dark and silent. Great alien empires, full of science, wisdom, and power, were falling, one after another. The enemy came from the dark parts of space. No one knew where it came from, or even what it truly was. It moved like smoke, spreading fast, covering everything. It had no name at first, but soon, every corner of the galaxy called it the same thing: the Dark Swarm. The swarm did not talk. It did not stop. It destroyed cities in seconds. It crushed mighty fleets with ease. Alien weapons were useless. Shields failed. Planets burned. And worse, the swarm left nothing behind. No bodies, no machines, just dust. The Kilari Empire was the first to fall. Their warships were proud and strong, but they vanished in a single day. Then the Velnari, the Raylon, the Teverin, empires older than human history, shut their gates, closed their borders, and ran. Some leaders called for peace talks, but the swarm did not answer. It only came and destroyed. In the silence that followed, one voice cried out. His name was Varnak. He was not a soldier. He was a historian from a small moon in the ruined Rallon Empire. He had lost his family, his people, and his home. Now, alone in a broken space station, he recorded a message. "If anyone is listening," Varnak said, his voice weak but clear, "we are dying. The swarm will not stop. They will come for you too. We need help. Please, we need hope." He sent the message into the stars. Then his lights went out. The station went cold, and the galaxy stayed quiet, until Earth heard the call. The message traveled for days, through dust clouds, past frozen moons, through old satellite networks. One old human outpost picked it up, a forgotten listening station floating near Pluto. The signal was weak and filled with static, but still, it reached the Earth communications network. The humans were surprised. They had not heard from any aliens in years. The galaxy had grown cold and distant. Treaties were broken. Travel between stars had stopped. Humans believed they were alone again. But the message changed everything. The United Earth Council called a secret meeting. The leaders watched Varnak's message again and again. Some were scared. Others were angry. Most were silent. One man said, "We cannot fight something that destroyed the Rellon." Another asked, "Why should we fight at all?" Then someone stood up. A woman in a dark blue uniform. Her name was Captain Maya Rains. She was a hero of the last border war, a soldier, a leader, and someone who believed in more than just safety. She looked around the room and said, "If everyone else has given up, then maybe it's time for humans to stand up. We are not the biggest empire. We are not the most advanced, but we don't run." The room went quiet. Outside, the people of Earth did not know what was happening in the stars. They lived their lives under blue skies, not knowing that across space, worlds were ending. Children played. Cars moved through cities. And in the dark, a storm was coming closer. The council was divided. Half wanted to lock down Earth, close all space gates and hide. The other half, led by Maya, wanted to send help. A vote was made. The result: one ship, one mission, a warning and a promise. The ship was named Valiant. It was fast, smart, and ready for danger. It had a small crew of experts, pilots, engineers, scientists, and fighters. Maya led them all. Before leaving, Maya stood before the crew and said, "We may be the last hope, not just for Earth, but for everyone. We don't know what waits for us out there, but we go anyway." As Valiant left Earth's orbit, thousands watched from screens across the planet. They did not cheer. They did not cry. They simply watched, silent and still, as the ship faded into the black. In the distance, past the stars, the swarm moved again. But this time, something was different. This time, humans were coming. And they were not coming to run. They were coming to fight. Captain Maya Raines sat in the command chair of the Valiant, her eyes focused on the endless stars stretching before them. The crew moved around her, checking systems, scanning for threats, and adjusting the ship's course. It had been 3 days since they left Earth, and the silence of space felt heavier than usual. No one spoke much. Everyone knew what they were flying into, even if they didn't fully understand it. The message from Varnak had shaken them. They had all seen the footage: broken cities, dead space, a voice full of fear. Some of them still doubted the mission. Some wondered if this was a suicide trip, but none of them turned back. Maya walked through the ship's main hallway, checking on her crew. She stopped by the engine room, where Chief Engineer Ramos was tuning the core drive. "Everything stable?" she asked. Ramos nodded without looking up. "As stable as it can be, considering we're flying into the unknown." Maya gave him a small smile. "That's our specialty, remember." In the comms bay, Specialist Lin was still trying to decode the last fragments of Varnak's message. "It's not just a warning," she said to Maya. "There's something hidden in the data stream. I think Varnak was trying to send us coordinates." "Coordinates to what?" Maya asked. Lin shook her head. "I don't know yet, but he wanted us to find it." The crew gathered in the briefing room later that day. Maya stood at the front, a digital star map glowing behind her. She pointed at a blinking red point deep in uncharted space. "That's where we're going," she said. The data Lin found points to a dead system near the Raulan border. No known planets, no stations, just silence. Lieutenant Juno, her second in command, frowned. "Could be a trap." "Could be," Maya said. "But if there's any chance of survivors, we check it out." No one argued. They were trained for this. But deep inside, each of them felt the growing pressure of fear. This wasn't like other missions. They were going where no one had returned from. They were chasing a ghost. As the Valiant entered the system, the stars dimmed. Clouds of dust and broken rock floated through space like drifting bones. The main planet, once called Naraxis by the Raulan, was now nothing more than a cracked shell. Fires still burned on its surface. They scanned for life. Nothing. They scanned for signals. One faint pulse. "Source?" Maya asked. "Orbiting debris field," Lin replied. "It's weak, but it's Raulan tech. Might be a station." The Valiant slowly approached. The station was torn open in several places, pieces floating like wreckage from a forgotten war. Maya took a small team and boarded the remains. Inside, there was no light. No air, just silence and floating dust. They moved through the halls with flashlights. The walls were marked by burns, claw marks, and strange patterns like melted metal. Something terrible had happened here. In the command room, they found the source of the signal. A small black box, part of an ancient Raulan recorder. Lin plugged it into a translator. The screen lit up. Varnak's face appeared again, but this time, he looked worse. Tired. Hurt. Behind him, the station was shaking. Screams echoed in the background. "They'd broken through. I tried to warn you. We should have united. But it's too late now. If anyone finds this, go to the Dusk Beacon. It's the only place left. The only safe place. The Swarm, they are not what we thought." The message ended with static. "What's the Dusk Beacon?" Juno asked. "A myth," said Lin. "It was said to be a place of old power, built before the empires, hidden in deep space. No one ever proved it was real." Maya looked at the map. Her eyes narrowed. "Then it's time we prove it." As they returned to the ship, a new signal appeared on the radar. "Contact," yelled the navigator. "Fast-moving object, closing in." Maya rushed to the bridge. On the screen, something moved. Black, shifting, too fast to get a clear view. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't natural. It was the Swarm. "Shields up. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The ship shook as a beam of energy grazed the hull. Lights flickered. Alarms blared. For the first time, they saw it. A creature, part machine, part shadow, larger than anything they had ever seen, appeared from behind the debris. It had no eyes, no face, just a pulsing red core in its center. Maya gave the order, "Fire all weapons." Lasers lit up the dark. Explosions rocked the swarm creature. It screamed, a sound that echoed inside their minds. It turned and vanished as quickly as it came. The crew sat in silence, breathing heavily. No one had died, but the message was clear. The swarm knew they were here, and it was watching. Maya stared into space, her jaw tight. "They thought humans would run too," she whispered. They were wrong. The Valiant drifted through the darkness, wounded but alive. After the swarm's sudden attack, the crew worked quickly to repair the damage. Sparks flew in the engineering bay. The lights flickered across the main halls. But everyone moved with purpose. There was no panic, only quiet determination. Captain Maya Raines stood on the observation deck, watching the shattered remains of the Raylan station float past the ship. She could still hear the sound of the swarm's scream in her mind. It wasn't just noise. It felt like pain, rage, and hunger, all at once. It didn't speak, but it made its message clear. Go back, or be destroyed. But Maya had made her choice. She called a meeting with the senior crew. Around the table sat Lieutenant Juno, Engineer Ramos, Communications Specialist Lynn, Weapons Officer Kai, and Dr. Morgan. "They know we're here," Maya said, "and they don't like it. They nearly tore us apart," Ramos replied, rubbing his bruised arm. "That wasn't even their full force." "Exactly," Maya said. "It was a warning. The swarm plays with fear. They strike fast, vanish, and leave survivors to carry the story." "Then we carry our own story," Kai said, loading fresh plasma cells into his weapon holsters. "We're not just survivors. We're fighters." Lynn tapped a few keys and brought up a new map, based on Varnek's last message. "The Dusk Beacon is our next destination." I cross-referenced old Raylan star charts and found something interesting. A black zone. Unmapped, untraveled. They called it the Hollow Sector. Maya leaned forward. "That's where we go." The crew didn't question her. As the Valiant traveled deeper into the Hollow Sector, the stars seemed to disappear. The blackness outside was thicker, heavier. Gravity shifted. Navigation systems glitched. They passed strange space debris, ships from old civilizations, torn apart and left to drift. None had signs of life. Some were hundreds of years old. Then the sensors beeped. "Life signs," Lynn said, surprised. "Small, faint, planet surface." "What kind of planet?" Juno asked. "Barely stable atmosphere. Cold, mostly ruined, but something's alive down there." Maya gave the order. "Suit up. We're going down." The landing was rough. Winds howled across the broken surface. The sky was gray with storms. Old buildings stood like bones, silent towers from a forgotten age. The crew split into teams and searched for the source of the signal. In a half-buried shelter, under piles of rock and ash, they found a small metal door. Maya and Kai pulled it open. Inside, they found life. A child. She was small, thin, with silver skin and glowing eyes. Her clothes were torn, and she did not speak. She just stared at them with wide, frightened eyes. Dr. Morgan rushed to check her condition. "She's dehydrated, weak, but alive." Maya knelt beside the girl. "We're not here to hurt you," she said softly. "We came to help." The girl didn't respond, but she didn't run either. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. "Something's coming," Kai said, raising his weapon. The crew formed a circle around the child as the ground began to shake. In the distance, shapes moved. Dozens of them. Dark, fast, crawling over the ruined buildings like insects. "The swarm," Juno said. "They're here." The crew activated their defenses. Portable shields rose around them. Plasma rifles warmed up. Maya looked at the child. "Stay with me," she whispered. The first wave hit fast. Shadow creatures with razor limbs and red eyes leaped through the air. The crew fired in unison. Bright blasts lit up the dark ruins. Swarm bodies fell, but more came. The shields cracked. The noise grew louder. The child covered her ears, shaking with fear. Then something strange happened. The child stood up. Her eyes glowed brighter. She raised one small hand, and the swarm stopped. Just for a second, the creatures froze. Then they turned and vanished into the shadows. The crew stood still, weapons raised, waiting. But nothing came. Maya turned to the child. What did you just do?" The girl looked at her and finally spoke, in a soft, strange voice. "They fear me." Everyone stared, confused. Dr. Morgan stepped forward. "She's not just a survivor," he said. "She's something more." Lynn checked her scanner again. Her energy, it's similar to the swarm, but different. Like she's made of the same stuff, but something's changed. "She's the key," Maya said quietly, "to the swarm, to understanding it, maybe even stopping it." They returned to the Valiant, the child safe in their arms. But as they lifted off, the skies above the planet darkened again. A massive shape appeared in orbit, a swarm command ship bigger than anything they had seen before. Maya gave the order, "Get us out." Now, the engines roared. The Valiant raced through the storm, dodging enemy fire. The ship shook, alarms blared, but they broke through. Back in space, safe, for now. Maya looked at the girl. "You're not just a survivor," she whispered. "You might be the reason we win." The Valiant flew silently through space, its engines humming quietly as it moved deeper into the unknown. The crew had been through hell. They had fought the swarm, seen their ship damaged, and barely escaped a deadly planet. But none of it mattered now. They had the girl, the child who could control the swarm, or at least make them pause. But Maya knew that the swarm wouldn't stop. They had learned too much about humanity's arrival. They had seen how fragile hope could be, and they would do everything in their power to crush it. The girl, whose name they learned was Kara, stayed in the ship's medical bay, recovering from her ordeal. Her glowing eyes flickered less with fear now, and Dr. Morgan was hopeful. "She's not just surviving, Captain," he said one evening as he watched over her. "She's adapting. I think she's becoming stronger." "She's not just a weapon," Maya replied. "She's a person. We need to understand her before we can use her, if we ever can." The crew was divided on what to do next. Some wanted to head straight for the Dusk Beacon, the mysterious location mentioned in Varnek's message. Others argued that they needed to gather more information, find allies, maybe even strengthen their position before venturing into uncharted space again. But Maya knew there was no time. The swarm was already hunting them, and they needed to strike first, or they might never get the chance. That's when they received a message. It was a distress signal, barely a whisper on the comms, but it was enough to get their attention. "It's from a Rowland colony," Lynn said as she decoded the message. "But it's been sent from a different system, far beyond any of the known borders." "Is it a trap?" Juno asked, his voice low with suspicion. "It doesn't look like it," Lynn answered, her face lit up by the screen's glow. "It's from a ship called the Archelaus. They're asking for help." Maya made the decision without hesitation. "We go." The crew worked quickly to prepare the Valiant for a jump. The Dusk Beacon would have to wait. If there were survivors out there, they needed to get to them before the swarm did. The coordinates Lynn provided took them to a region of space no one had mapped. Chaotic, unstable, filled with asteroid fields and unstable gravimetric pockets. But Maya wasn't afraid. Not now. The weight of humanity's last hope pressed on her shoulders. As the ship moved deeper into the unknown, something began to change. The further they got, the darker the space seemed to become. There were no stars here, no beacons, no light from distant systems, just cold, empty space. Then they reached it, a massive ship, floating like a broken monument in the darkness. "The Archelaus," Lynn whispered. "It looks abandoned." Maya's instincts screamed that something was wrong. She ordered a slow approach, her mind racing through possibilities. They had to be cautious. The swarm could be close, waiting, hiding in the shadows. When they docked with the Archelaus, the crew put on their suits and moved through the airlock. The ship was eerily quiet. There were no signs of life, but the systems were still online, humming softly. The lights flickered above them as they walked down darkened hallways. Dust covered everything. They found the bridge first. The captain of the Archelaus lay slumped over her console, still alive but barely breathing. Dr. Morgan rushed to her side, but it was clear she was suffering from some sort of strange energy drain. "It's the swarm," Morgan said, checking her vitals. "They've drained her energy. She's not the first." They continued to search the ship, finding more survivors, each of them weak, barely able to speak. And then they found the children. A group of young Rylon and human children, huddled together in a storage room, looked up as the crew entered. Their eyes were full of fear. Maya's heart sank. She knew what this meant. The swarm didn't just kill, they took. They fed on fear, on hope, on the energy of entire civilizations. The children were all that was left. "We need to get them to safety," Maya said, her voice tight. "Now." But as they gathered the children, they were interrupted by the sound of alarms. The Archelaus began to shake. The walls cracked, and the ship groaned as if something enormous was trying to break through. "Get them to the escape pods," Maya ordered. Now, the crew rushed the children down to the escape pods, but the shaking only grew worse. Suddenly, the hull cracked open and the lights went out. An eerie silence filled the ship as they watched in horror. The dark shape of the swarm, a massive creature, was inside the Archelaus. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Its form was fluid, shifting, a collection of black tendrils that reached out and wrapped around the survivors. It seemed to grow, feeding on their life energy, pulling them into its darkness. Maya didn't hesitate. "We fight." They fired everything they had, but the creature was like smoke, shifting, moving, impossible to hit. It was everywhere and nowhere. The crew fought with everything they had, but it was a losing battle. The Archelaus was collapsing, and they had no way to stop the creature. Maya looked at Kara, who stood at the edge of the room, watching the chaos unfold. The child's eyes flickered with something. Anger, fear, or maybe something more. Then, without warning, Kara stepped forward, her small hands raised. The creature froze. It stopped moving, suspended in midair. The crew watched in awe as Kara's eyes glowed brighter. She was controlling the swarm, but this wasn't just stopping it. She was commanding it. She forced the creature to shrink back, to retract into the darkness. It screeched, like the sound of metal tearing. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. Kara collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Maya rushed to her side. "You did it. You stopped it." Kara's voice was weak, but clear. "It's not over. They will come back. They always do." Maya nodded, her mind already racing. The dusk beacon was still out there. They weren't safe yet, but for the first time since they had left Earth, she allowed herself a brief moment of hope. They could win this. Together. The Valiant drifted through space, the stars growing brighter as they approached the edge of the known universe. The crew, though battle-worn and weary, had found a moment of peace since the attack on the Archelaus. Kara had proven herself as both a force and a mystery. Her ability to control the swarm was something that could change the entire war. But the crew knew that the swarm wouldn't stop. They were just waiting for the right moment to strike again. The journey to the dusk beacon had never been more urgent. Maya sat alone in her quarters, staring at the holographic map of the galaxies spread out before her. The dusk beacon wasn't a place of hope. It was a place of secrets. A hidden power that could end the war, but also possibly bring humanity into the darkness. She couldn't afford to hesitate. The longer they stayed in one place, the more dangerous their situation became. The swarm had already proven they could track them across impossible distances. Kara was asleep in the medical bay, recovering from the energy drain she had endured. Despite her small frame, the child had immense power, but it came at a cost. Maya didn't know how long Kara could keep up this fight, but there was no time to waste. If they could reach the dusk beacon, they might finally understand what the swarm truly was and how to stop them. The comms beeped, snapping Maya from her thoughts. It was Lynn, her voice tense. "Captain, you need to see this." Maya stood up quickly, her heart skipping a beat. She made her way to the bridge, where Lynn was already at her console, a look of concern etched on her face. "What is it?" Maya asked. "The sensors are picking up something strange," Lynn replied. She turned the screen to Maya. "I don't know how to explain it, but the gravity in this sector is shifting. I've never seen anything like it. It's like something's bending space itself." Maya frowned, leaning closer to the screen. A series of red dots blinked in a formation that was too perfect to be natural. "What does it mean?" Lynn hesitated, tapping a few keys. "It's like a gravity well, but it's not like any black hole we've ever encountered. The data suggests there's something here, something big, but it's hidden." Juno stepped in from behind, looking over Lynn's shoulder. "Are we talking about a ship?" "Not just a ship," Lynn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like the entire area is a trap. Someone or something is controlling the gravity in this region, but we can't pinpoint it." Maya's eyes narrowed. The dusk beacon was still several light years away, but this anomaly was far too close to ignore. She had to know if it was connected to the swarm, or worse, something they hadn't even begun to understand. "Set a course for the gravity well," Maya ordered. "We're going in." The crew worked quickly, the Valiant adjusting its course as they navigated closer to the anomaly. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Space twisted and bent in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The stars seemed to ripple as if they were caught in a living current, and the deeper they moved, the more unnatural the feeling became. The Valiant was tossed about, the hull creaking under pressure. The lights flickered, and the ship shook. "It's a force field," Ramos shouted from engineering. "The ship's holding, but we're pushing the limits here." "Stay focused," Maya commanded, gripping the back of her chair. "We push through." This could be the key to everything. The gravity increased, and their speed slowed. It felt as though they were crawling through thick tar. Even the crew felt the pressure now, their movements slow and labored. Maya could feel the tension rising as they approached the heart of the anomaly. The ship groaned in protest, but they couldn't stop now. And then, without warning, the Valiant broke through. The view outside was no longer just empty space. Instead, there was a massive structure, a ring, a perfect circle made of gleaming dark metal. It was enormous, far larger than any space station or ship the crew had ever encountered. It floated in the middle of the distortion, its surface covered in strange, glowing symbols. Maya's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just some lost outpost or abandoned station. This was something ancient, something far beyond the reach of any known civilization. The dusk beacon. "Are we seeing this?" Juno whispered, his voice tinged with awe. "Pull us in slowly," Maya said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "I want full scans. This is it, crew. We're about to make history." They approached the dusk beacon cautiously, the ship's sensors scanning every inch. There were no signs of life. No ships. No communication. Just the silent, towering structure that seemed to hum with power, hidden deep in space. But then, as the Valiant moved closer, something stirred within the beacon. The symbols on the surface flickered, and a low hum began to vibrate through the ship's hull. "What's happening?" Lynn asked, her eyes wide with fear. The lights aboard the Valiant flickered violently, and suddenly, a voice boomed over the ship's comms. It was deep, ancient, and it seemed to echo through the minds of the crew. "You should not have come." The voice was not human. It was not R'hllon. It was something far older, something that had lived in the forgotten spaces between stars. Maya's grip tightened on her chair. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice firm despite the rising tension. The voice responded, its tone cold and judgmental. "We are the Guardians. The dusk beacon is not for you. Leave now or face extinction." Maya stood tall, her expression hardening. "We're not leaving. We've come this far. We're taking what's ours." There was a long silence, and then the voice spoke again. "You think you can stop what's coming. The swarm was not your enemy. You are. And now, you will join them." The Valiant shuddered violently. The gravity around them increased, pulling the ship toward the beacon. The crew scrambled, trying to regain control, but the ship was losing power. Kara, who had been silent in the corner, stood up, her eyes glowing once more. "It's not too late," she said softly, her voice filled with strange power. "They can't stop us. Not if we fight together." Maya turned to her, seeing the strength in the girl's eyes. Kara was more than just a child. She was humanity's last hope, and now, with the dusk beacon in front of them, they had no choice but to push forward. Maya gripped the controls tightly, her voice resolute. "All hands, brace for impact. We're not leaving without answers." The Valiant shook violently as the gravity well intensified, pulling the ship closer to the heart of the dusk beacon. The crew fought to keep control, but the power of the beacon seemed to have a mind of its own, dragging them toward its core. The ship's systems sputtered, lights flickering, alarms blaring in the background. Outside, the giant ring of the beacon loomed, its dark surface pulsing with an eerie glow. Maya's hands gripped the controls, her knuckles white with tension. "Hold steady," she muttered, though she wasn't sure who she was trying to reassure. She could feel the entire crew bracing for whatever would come next. Kara, standing near the back of the bridge, was quiet, her small hands clenched at her sides, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "We won't make it unless we break free," Juno said, his voice urgent. He was at the weapons console, ready for anything. "We're not running," Maya snapped, her voice firm. "We're getting answers. This is humanity's last shot at surviving this war, and we're not turning back." Suddenly, the ship lurched again, and everything went dark. The sudden absence of sound was deafening. For a moment, it felt as though the Valiant was suspended in time itself. Then the lights returned, but they were dimmer, and the ship seemed to be drifting without power. "Shields are failing," Ramos shouted from engineering. "The beacon is draining our energy faster than we can recharge. We're running on backup systems." "Get us out of here, Ramos," Maya ordered, but she knew that the odds of escaping now were slim. The dusk beacon had them in its grip. Then the voice returned, echoing through the ship like an ancient thunderstorm. "You cannot escape. You were not meant to find this place. You do not belong here." Maya stood, her heart pounding in her chest. The voice seemed to reverberate within her, as though it was speaking directly to her mind. She could feel its power, the sheer weight of its presence. The Guardians, they had to be the ones controlling the beacon. But why? Why now? "I don't care what you think," Maya said aloud, her voice steady. "We're here, and we're not leaving until we have answers." "You will never have the answers you seek," the voice boomed. "The truth of the swarm is beyond your understanding. They are not your enemies. They are your kin. You are what they were, what they will become. And now, you will join them." The crew was silent, the weight of the words sinking in. Maya could feel the air grow heavier, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. The voice's message was clear. The swarm, humanity was destined to become part of them. Was that what the beacon had been designed for? A warning? A prophecy? Or something more sinister? No, Maya said, shaking her head, refusing to accept the idea that their fate was already sealed. We're not the same. We're humans, and we fight for our survival. The ship suddenly jolted again, harder this time, throwing everyone off balance. The lights flickered once more, and then, without warning, the walls of the ship began to pulse in time with the beacon's dark energy. The crew struggled to stay on their feet, their breath coming in short gasps as the gravity in the Valiant shifted, growing stronger with every passing second. Kara, who had remained silent up until now, stepped forward. Her eyes, bright with an energy that felt almost unnatural, locked onto Maya's. "They're scared of you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "They know you can stop them. That's why they're trying to break you." Maya turned to Kara, her expression softening for a moment. The girl's words cut through the tension like a blade. Kara didn't know everything, but in that moment, it felt like she understood more than anyone else on the ship. "They won't break us," Maya said, her voice firm with renewed determination. "They won't break humanity. We're stronger than they think." Ramos's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, the shields are down. If we don't break free now, the beacon will pull us in completely." Maya looked at Kara one more time before turning to the controls. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. The Valiant was barely holding together. The crew was barely holding together. But they had no choice. They had to fight. "Get ready," Maya said, her voice cold and resolute. "We're making a break for it." She slammed her hand down on the controls, directing the ship to the edge of the gravity well. For a moment, nothing happened. The ship's engines roared to life, but the Valiant seemed to be stuck, unable to break free from the beacon's grip. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. They were running out of time. And then she remembered something. Varnek's last message, the coordinates for the dusk beacon. There was something important in what he had said about the beacon's power. Maybe they could use it against the Guardians. Maybe they could turn the beacon's energy into a weapon. "Maya," Lynn said urgently from her station. "There's a way we can disrupt the beacon's control, but it's risky. We need to overload the core generator, but if we don't time it right, it could tear us apart." Maya's mind raced. They didn't have much time left. But if this was their only chance, she couldn't afford to hesitate. Do it. The crew worked frantically, Lynn typing commands into her console as Ramos adjusted the power levels. The ship shook again as the overload began. The hum of the beacon grew louder, the lights flashing erratically. "It's now or never," Lynn shouted. Maya held her breath as the Valiant surged forward, using every ounce of power the engines had left to break free from the beacon's grip. The ship groaned, the walls shuddering as though the very bones of the Valiant were screaming. Kara collapsed to her knees, her energy drained. The beacon's hum reached a deafening pitch and then, boom! The Valiant lurched forward as the beacon exploded in a burst of blinding light. The shockwave threw the ship violently to the side, but they had broken free. The gravity well released its hold, and the Valiant shot out into the emptiness of space, leaving the shattered remnants of the dusk beacon behind. Maya's breath came in ragged gasps as she looked around at her crew. They had made it, but at what cost? "We're not done yet," Maya said, her voice low but filled with a quiet fire. "The swarm is still out there, and now we know the truth. They're coming for us all." The Valiant coasted through the cold, endless expanse of space, its engines a low hum in the silence. The crew was exhausted, their faces drawn with fatigue and fear, but a sense of victory lingered in the air. They had done the impossible. They had escaped the clutches of the dusk beacon, and in doing so, had disrupted the control the Guardians had over the beacon itself. But Maya knew this was just the beginning. The swarm was still out there. They had only bought themselves a moment's respite, and in war, even seconds mattered. As the ship drifted further from the wreckage of the beacon, Maya sat alone in the bridge, staring at the starry view beyond the windows. The universe felt so vast, so empty, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed down on her chest. There was no turning back now. The swarm knew they were coming. The guardians knew they were coming. And that voice, "You are what they were, what they will become." The words echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the truth they still had yet to uncover. Maya. It was Juno, his voice a welcome interruption to her thoughts. He stepped onto the bridge, looking weary but resolute. "We've finished analyzing the data from the beacon's core. There's something there, something important." Maya looked up, her brow furrowing. "What did you find?" Juno pulled up a holographic display, the light from the console flickering against his face. The dusk beacon wasn't just a signal or a weapon. It was a key. There are maps in the data, ancient coordinates, pointing to a place that the swarm has been trying to protect. "Where?" Maya asked, her voice filled with urgency. "It's not a location," Juno continued. "It's an ancient structure, hidden in a remote part of the galaxy. It seems to be linked directly to the swarm. It's a machine, or something like it." Maya's mind raced. The swarm had never been a typical enemy. They were more than just a collection of mindless creatures. They were a force, a consciousness, linked together in ways humanity couldn't comprehend. And now she was beginning to wonder if the swarm wasn't just an invasion, if they were an evolution. "What does this mean for us?" she asked. "It means," Juno said slowly, "that we've just uncovered the heart of the swarm. If we destroy this place, we could bring down their entire network. If we don't, they'll keep coming. And they'll only get stronger." "Do we know where this place is?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's far," Juno said, "beyond the known territories. But it's our best chance to end this." Maya's mind was already working through the possibilities. There was no turning back from this. If they could find this place and destroy it, they could end the war. They could save humanity. But if they failed, it would mean their destruction, and the destruction of everything they had fought for. The crew gathered in the briefing room shortly after, all of them aware that the stakes had just been raised. Kara was there too, her small frame sitting quietly in the corner. Her eyes were distant, almost as if she could feel the weight of their mission, even if she didn't fully understand it. Maya addressed them, her tone firm. "We've seen what the swarm can do. We've faced the guardians. Now we know where it all leads. We have one chance to destroy them, but it will take everything we have. I need every single one of you to be ready." The room was silent. No one spoke, but everyone knew what needed to be done. The Valiant had been through so much already, battling the swarm, surviving the dusk beacon, making impossible decisions. And now they were about to embark on the most dangerous mission they had ever faced. "I don't know how much time we have," Maya continued, "but I do know this. We are not running anymore. We're fighting. We're fighting for humanity. We're fighting for every world the swarm has destroyed and for every life they've taken. And if we have to do it alone, then we will. But we will fight." The crew stood, their expressions resolute. Even Kara, despite her small size, stood tall, her eyes glowing faintly. She wasn't just a child. She wasn't just a weapon. She was their ally, their hope, and maybe, just maybe, the key to their victory. The Valiant jumped into hyperspace, its engines roaring to life as they shot toward the coordinates Juno had found. The galaxy around them blurred into a stream of light as the ship moved at impossible speeds. The tension was thick in the air as they raced toward an unknown future. Hours passed, the silence only broken by the occasional updates from the crew. Lynn and Ramos worked tirelessly in the engine room, keeping the Valiant in top shape. Juno and Maya stayed on the bridge, constantly monitoring the path ahead. They had no idea what awaited them, but they knew one thing for certain. They were no longer running. "We're here." Lynn's voice crackled over the comms. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. "Coordinates are locked. We're at the edge of the galaxy." The crew gathered once more, standing at the ready. They had arrived at their destination, the place that could either end the war or doom them all. Ahead of them, through the viewports, they could see it. The structure was colossal, stretching across the void like an ancient city of metal and stone. There were no stars here, only a cold, empty darkness. This was the heart of the swarm, the place where they had been born, where they had been made. Maya took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing as she steeled herself for what was to come. This is it. Whatever happens, we face it together. No matter what they throw at us, we fight. We win. The crew nodded in unison. The Valiant slowly approached the structure, its hull creaking as they drew closer to the heart of the swarm. Time seemed to stretch, the universe holding its breath. And then, as they crossed the final threshold into the unknown, the structure came to life. The silence shattered, replaced by a low, rumbling hum that resonated deep within their bones. Maya's heart raced as the crew braced for the fight of their lives. The war wasn't over yet. The hardest part was still to come. But they would face it together.